Welcome to another insightful Global Legal Tech Talks in conjunction with NetDocuments. My name is Frances Anderson. I'm the CEO of NetLaw Media, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here today, where we're going to be discussing navigating legal tech, preparing law firms and legal departments for 2025 and beyond. So today we're going to be looking at the legal industry being in the middle of a vast transformation with the advancements of technology and generative AI. This exclusive webinar explores the impact on in-house and private practice in the face of the shift in business landscape during a volatile period globally. With AI at the peak of discussions, has this affected the drive towards the use of AFA and for value and data-driven legal services? What will the future hold for the profession with new skill sets, capabilities, and resourcing models now required to align with tech advancements and solution developments? We have 4 special guests with us today, where we'll be discussing this and more. And leading today's session is Jennifer Swallow, business and legal innovator, who will be chairing the session and who will bring you into the debate should you have any questions. This session is live, and if you would like to speak with Jennifer or the additional panel members and ask them a question, please do so through the chat or the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your screen, or raise your hand during the debate, and we will try and bring you into the discussion. So now moving forwards, I'm delighted to welcome you, Jennifer, and again, thank you everyone who's joined us. And now I'm handing it over to you. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Frances. Super welcome, everyone. Hello, hello. Really glad to be having this conversation at the end of the year. And we thought together that it would be a chance to take stock, really. So we've had a punchy 2024 on many levels. And so we can have a bit of a look back, and then we can prepare for 2025 with some practical insights from this incredible panel, both from a law firm and an in-house perspective, because I know we've got a bit of a blend, just looking at names there as well. And before we hit the Fresh New Year button, which we're coming up to soon. So we've got Catherine Bamford's fantastic perspective on what she's seeing and building with her clients at BAM Legal. They do a whole range of incredible work in legal engineering and beyond. We've got Dr. Katrina Wolfenden, who is speaking from the approach that she and her team are taking inside the law firm environment at the award-winning Waitmans, and how that's landing with clients and also with staff. And we've got Carl Poe, who is speaking to the vendor perspective and the insights and thematics he's seeing across his client base of firms and corporate departments, big and small. So super welcome to the panel. Now, we've got about an hour, and as Frances said, it would be amazing to bring people in if you are able to come actually into the conversation at points, but of course do drop thoughts in, and we'll try to weave that. But we'll kick off with some of the top of mind topics first, and I wanted to start with the panel as a bit of a check-in. So where are we? So 2024 has been pretty punchy globally. We've got the business environment responding to economic and geopolitical volatility. We've still got a bunch of tech developments. I saw Amazon has just come out with a really looks like it's heading in a low-cost direction on the AI side of things, and a huge amount of money pouring into AI and other tech. We've got a whole load of regulatory pressure pooling, and we've got evolving consumer preferences. So in law, and of course, every tech company now claims to be an AI company in law, and we've got clients that are increasingly AI enabled. So as we come to the end of 2024, let's start with you, Catherine. Where are we on the legal tech journey? What are you seeing? What are your observations?
I think we've reached in 2024 quite a sensible point. I think 2023 was a lot of like, oh, and excitement and running off everywhere, and kind of looking at tools for tools' sake and trying to, buying tech and then trying to find what use cases and that kind of thing. And there was also some firms put complete stops on other projects just to fly in, which, kind of ruffled a few feathers. But I think 2024, the type of clients we're working with and the type of things we're seeing, it's very organized. What is our strategy when it's coming now to looking for new tools? People are saying, we have identified this task or this transaction, this area of law, and we would like help to find something that does specifically that. So in-house, a lot of people at the moment looking at pre-execution contract review tools, because there's some great
Mm.
moves have been made there. So I think actually 2024 has been a kind of a sobering and a sensible year, and coming into 2025, I know we'll come on to, but it's that's a good platform to then get excited again of where we can go, because we're starting to see some real results, and it's exciting.
Amazing. Orderly, progressing in an orderly fashion. Dr. Kat, where are you on this? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? What are clients thinking about what you're doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
Where are we on the LegalTech journey? Yeah.
I think obviously generative AI has still captured kind of, societal imagination and kind of lawyer at large imagination, which, and again, some of that hype has cooled a little bit this year. But I think it's been good because it's brought almost a whole new cohort of people within law firms and clients who perhaps haven't previously wanted to interact with technology, haven't had to interact with it, in their kind of personal lives and stuff. It's brought them to think that technology can be the answer to some of their problems. I've sounded like a broken record for most of the year with my, can we go back to basics? Can we try and work out what problem we're solving? Because there does still seem to be a rush that Gen AI is the only solution in town. And I suppose for us and for our clients, experiment with it, use it. It's very much a part of a toolkit. And it's not always the only tool, or to be fair, the most efficient way of solving that problem. So that real kind of trying to get people to understand what they're actually trying to solve, and the right tool for it. And I think probably what's come with that is a focus again on the people side of innovation. And I think, we don't often talk about that, but I think you ignore the people side of innovation at your peril, both in the sense of kind of product and innovation teams and how they deal with massive change and help deliver. And then that kind of wider cohort of users. And we've seen the kind of trust debate as well feature quite heavily in this. So trust in the sense of, I suppose, almost pilot fatigue. How do we encourage user groups to want to experiment with technology? We're very conscious as a product and innovation function that, we should be trying things that don't work. Otherwise, we're not being innovative. We're just being relatively safe. But with that failure, and we're all really kind of comfortable with that as a team and a department and as a firm. But when you actually try and translate that into a pilot and a room full of lawyers, failure is not a massively comfortable thing for them. And that getting them through that and being able to trust that we will use technology responsibly, in line with ESG and all the other kind of social and responsible regulatory ways we want to use it, but still let them play and fail at stuff. So that's been a really big kind of discussion this year.
Interesting. So there's two angles to the trust thing there, and I think we'll pick this up in the next piece. One is around failed experiments and feeling like, the tech's not actually going to work, and the other one is around sort of ethics, ESG, doing the right thing. So let's pick those two things up, and also the people side of innovation. I think is really important, and let's pick that up on an aspect of resourcing, because I think that actually is going to play in quite heavily for 2025. Kyle, where are we now from your perspective? 2024. Where are we?
Yeah, so I think that ChatGPT is launched in late 2022, and I think 2023 was like the year of knee-jerk reactions and panic, and then learning, right? Kind of the two sides of that, the negative and the positive. I think 2024 has really been about strategy and planning. Firms that are kind of at the cutting edge are planning for their AI strategies, their data strategies, and then exploring with that pilots and POCs and exploring tools that fit in and match with their firm's data and AI strategies. I think that we've seen in 2024 the elusive search for the use cases with those pilots and those POCs. I think that for those firms that have done that work and have done the planning and done the strategization, 2025 is really a year of implementation and execution. It's the year where we're going to see actual use cases in practice. And we're already seeing some, but I think you're going to see wider spread adoption. And obviously, it depends on the firm. Some firms are probably still in that first phase of knee-jerk reaction. Some clients are definitely in the, having policy to say, no AI whatsoever. So some are sort of at the early part of the journey. Others are a little bit more advanced. But I think the good news for everyone is that it's early days. And because things are moving so fast, even if you are just starting now, you're kind of figuring out where you're going with your strategy. It's not too late. I think that's the good news. And I think that you can very easily catch up with in 2025.
Okay, amazing. And so starting to scale what has been tested.
Yeah.
So if we talk, because Catherine, you mentioned strategy, Carl, you mentioned strategy. Let's just talk about strategy for a minute, because there has been this scramble. Let's say we're starting to get into a more steady state or a more structured, orderly approach. What are you seeing as being the likely projections for 2025 in terms of how people are moving on strategy? Like, what are the actual priorities, strategic priorities for 2025 that you're seeing? Catherine, maybe picking up from what you said.
So the law firms that have come to us at the kind of in 2024 wanting strategy, it was literally how on earth do we keep on top of all this new stuff that's out there? How do we take first steps? So a lot of it was going back to that kind of areas of law, policies. So to Kyle's point, it's the 2025 is more that implementation plan, while still I really liked what Dr. Kat said about still being able to innovate and play. And if you're going to fail and fail fast, so you've got to see some results and get something in place and get something rolled out. So it's having those work streams of we've identified this area is an area and we've identified this tool fits this task. And here's our plan, our change management plan and our implementation plan to roll that out and scale it. And different law firms have different plans, whether it's, land and expand, or whether it's having lots of mini projects going on all together to then come in. Whereas then there's others that are going, well, actually, we've seen that it can do that. Can it also now do that? So still doing those experiments at the same time. So your implementation very much is how you implement any project. That's your back to basics, back to boring, but it's
a knock-on question to that then is, do you think that we've moved on strategically from feeling like we need to be seen to be doing something into a more purposeful moment, both in-house and law firms? I'm still seeing a lot of we just need to do something and be seen to do something.
Yes, and I think being brave enough to say we need help, we need to come up with what is, first of all, our board level strategy, and then from that, right, who have we got in place that can help us then implement that and scale that and roll that out. So it's okay to be at that point and to say we need help, but I think enough firms have now done that work, and now it is, as Carl said, it's more that implementation next year.
And I'm seeing as well, particularly law firms, but also some in-house teams, the fact that there's 5 years from next year to 2030 seems to be focusing minds. So
I hate 5-year strategies. I think 5-year strategies it's nice to have a vision, but it's out of date as soon as the ink's dry, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's always 5 years beyond. Kyle, what are you seeing strategically with your clients? What are the priorities for next year that people are banking on, and are they taking a more strategic approach?
Yeah, I think that strategy does start with the kind of high level ambitions, right? I think initially, right? So you've got kind of two pressures, particularly in the firm space. You've got partners throughout firms who are asking firm management, hey, what are we doing on legal AI? And then you've got clients also asking, if they're not panicking about it, they're asking, what are you guys doing in terms of legal AI, particularly doing like the RFP process, right? They're asking, what investments are you making? And so firm management kind of getting the pressure from both ends wants to, adopt strategies that have where they can show something, where they have something to show for what they're doing. I think that's where it starts. I think that that starts with just obviously the evaluation. I think we're transitioning from just the exploratory phase being sufficient to now being results oriented, right? I think what firms really want to see is a couple of key use cases that can be implemented, that can have real results, either on the administrative side, the non-billable timekeeper, the non-billable time that timekeepers spend, or truly on the practice of law, billable time side of things. They want to see actual results. And I mean, in my experience, the best way for solutions to be kind of evangelized throughout organizations is for there to be kind of, one practice area, one or two practice areas that adopt a particular solution, and it can be really successful. You can then say what they can then kind of evangelize to the rest of the organization and say what they did in terms of how they identified their use case, how they executed on the use case, and then what the results in ROI, as they say, of that use case were.
Okay, so maybe, and Kat, if you want to jump in on the strategy piece and what you're doing, but I'm interested in where we've landed there on ROI. I would love us to talk to that and to the money. So how are we starting to, and what are we going to see in 2025 around thinking around ROI? How are we measuring it? Is it still the sort of pedestrian hours saved, or are we looking at more creative and dynamic evaluations of ROI? What are you seeing, Kat? How are you looking at that?
Yeah, so I suppose in terms of strategy and values for us, we've kind of given ourselves 3 underpinning kind of commitments to use Gen AI. And we've built a kind of a 6-pillar strategy off the back of that. Frankly, some of it is doing some of the really quite boring legwork to make sure that, your data and taxonomies and all the kind of, fun but boring stuff is right to take advantage of whatever kind of technological advances will throw at us. ROI remains, doesn't it, quite literally the $1 million question. I mean, it is very, very messy in law firms when you try and kind of, we've worked with numerous suppliers over the years who have these really whizzy, here's our dashboard as to how we calculated and all of this, and it looks amazing. And then you try and bring that into an organization with all the kind of, the way lawyers work, and it doesn't live up. We try as hard as we can to, well, firstly to measure ROI for a start, and to control experiments as much as we can. So to try and, where there are similar pieces of technology, to be using the same kind of set of data, the same kind of, if we can get almost an identical, group of lawyers or whatever, but at least similar cohorts. So, a trainee cohort, an associate cohort, that kind of thing, so that we can as much as we can compare apples with apples, because I think that's a lot of the difficulty with this. So we try and control as much as we can. And we are looking for some form of quantifiable benefits, but it doesn't have to necessarily be time savings. I mean, that's the old, isn't it? I suppose, currency of lawyers. But I suppose with a lot of the technology now, we're looking for, well, does it do an outcome that's at least equal to in quality, if not better, than a lawyer? So trying to kind of quantify and measure that, which again, in the confines of a law firm becomes quite fun and messy. But can we get to the stage where we're saying either things are more accurate or things are of an increased quality? And almost then the by-shoot of that is that we're freeing up time, whether that be of marketing teams, of knowledge management teams, of lawyers, to do the bits of their job where they do add the real value. So it's a very, I don't think I believe any law firm that says they've got to the bottom of that, if I'm entirely honest. I think we're all making it up as we go along. We are starting with the best of intentions. We're refining the way we do things. We try and kind of measure, user surveys, that kind of thing. We've got relatively standard set of questions and scoring. So again, across different types of technologies and use cases, we have some form of baseline evidence. But, especially, I suppose, in the Gen AI world, this stuff is really expensive, especially if you're going to roll it out firm-wide. You need a pile of other roles to support it. We've mentioned the data bit, don't we? Data sovereignty, taxonomies, all of those type of roles, knowledge curation. You need all your trainers, all of those kind of roles before you've even started. So adding them onto the initial outlay of this technology, you suddenly come up to some pretty eye-watering figures, and boards rightly want to be able to show some return from that. But I think moving away from pure time savings to look at kind of quality of output, speed of output, value delivered in that sense as well.
Yes, and starting to focus at the top, not as a stack rank number 3 or 4, on client outcomes. So we're trying to evolve client service. We're trying to provide excellence for clients. What do clients need, and therefore what's ROI for clients, and therefore what's the longer term play for us? And things. The in-house at World, I think, is doing really well on this. Things like time to revenue. So since we did these 4 different things, we can shorten the time that it takes for us to do deals, and therefore we can increase the cadence of revenue coming into the business, for example. Catherine, you're nodding like mad. Tell me what you think on this subject of ROI.
It's so much that I agree with there. I think the outcomes basis of quality, but also, as you say, so it's not necessarily about time saving in terms of we're saving this many lawyer hours, so let's multiply that by some nominal cost per lawyer to work out the figures. But in terms of if we're getting our clients' deals done faster or
Yep.
with the quality outcome, I think is definitely very good. I just wanted to pick up as well, though. I absolutely love, because it doesn't happen everywhere, what you said about when you're piloting tools and when you're trying to evaluate tools, making sure that you have the same data sets, where you have, we even ask when we're just doing demos at the procurement stage before we even move to pilot, we send a kind of a script or a problem statement and say, this is what we want you to demo. Because otherwise everyone just demos the bit that their tool does best, you know, and not necessarily what the client wants to solve. So I just wanted to, I was really smiling at that part, because it's been game changing in terms of being able to see quickly which tools are up to the job for your particular use case.
Proper comparison. Okay, so can we jump into then, because we're touching here on, well, we're talking about money, right? We're talking about value. So let's just move into the conversation about pricing. So what are we seeing happening? Are we still just starting with a time-based evaluation of how much a piece of work would cost if we did it the old way? And then if we deploy AI or other technology to do the same thing, what can we sort of get away with? Like, where are we on pricing? Carl, can I come to you? What are you seeing on the way that clients across the board are thinking about how they pass on the value of things that they deploy? How are you seeing the impact of vendor engagement and onboarding on pricing?
Yeah, so I think, obviously there's the ever-present anxiety about, if we're going to be too efficient, and then, that reduces the amount of billable hours that we have. I think that the flip side of that is that what these technologies enable you to do is increase the value, the per hour value of attorney time, right? And so for certain firms, depends on the firms and kind of their competitive landscape that they face. Some firms compete on price, some compete on quality, so there's different kind of approaches. But for those that do not really compete on price, the ones that can have the ability to raise their rates, I think AI is going to enable them to continue to see what we've seen in the industry over the past couple of years. So we're going to continue to see raising rates at the top end of the spectrum, and firms are going to be pointing to their investments in AI to continue to justify those increasing rates. I think that for a lot of other firms, they're going to start, if they aren't already, they're going to be competing on price, right? And so for those firms, they're going to either be able to, when they pitch the work, they'll say, we'll do it on an hourly fee arrangement, but it will be fewer hours than it would have otherwise taken because of our AI technologies that we're leveraging. Or they're going to shift towards, of course, alternative fee arrangements. This is the thing, because people have been predicting for years and years. And we are seeing that more and more creep in. And I think AI is going to continue to accelerate that trend towards alternative fee arrangements. There are some places and for some firms and some practices where it makes more sense than others. Obviously, as the billable hour model is meant to address the problem of unpredictability in the time and investment needed to tackle a legal project. And what alternative fee arrangements are well suited for is when there is that predictability. And as we get better with data analytics and predictive analytics, we'll have greater predictability in terms of pricing fee arrangements. And then we can actually, we know firms will know what's going to be involved, and then they can intelligently price things on an alternative fee basis or a value basis.
Thank you. And I would love to get to unit pricing. I worked in a fintech where it was all about understanding exactly the cost of your business and therefore mapping that through to the price. Obviously, it's a consumer-facing business where we're trying to drive prices down, but we just don't see that type of thinking inside the legal environment. Kat, what are you doing on this? I know you've been looking at this.
Yeah, so again, pricing, I suppose we are an insurance firm by background, so we've always had, a variety of different pricing structures that kind of play across most of our business now. I think a lot of it is about giving clients a choice, isn't it? So you can have it room full of lawyers and it's X price. You can have it, where the tech does the bulk of the heavy lifting and it's Y price. You can have it with kind of, a hybrid model. Because, for every client who wants the tech, there are equally some who are still kind of quite wedded to, traditional lawyer review. But I suppose even those ones, it's a risk mitigation piece, isn't it? So that tends to be how the discussions are framed now, that, you can have 10% of documents reviewed by a lawyer for X price. but actually using technology can be up at 80, 90, 100% of the documents for the same price. So shifting that discussion to actually, if this is something that keeps you awake at night and you're going to extrapolate figures off the back of it, would you rather extrapolate off the basis of 80% of documents reviewed or the basis of 10% documents reviewed? And that's kind of a bit of a, sharp intake
it's a bit
of
like
breath and
it's a bit like it is it's a bit like the conversation that you have with a surgeon. Would you like the robotic surgery which has these type of outcomes, or would you like the manual surgery which has these types of outcomes? And but in order to have that conversation, you do need to have the data to enable the decision. So that then goes back to some of the things you were saying earlier about understanding. You've got to understand the reliability of the tooling. Tell me, are you also seeing, and I know, Carl, this is something that you had looked at, there's also, I've noticed, a trend for some firms in particular not wanting to tell clients that they're deploying AI, because that would then start the conversation about, oh, well, maybe I could just self-serve and I could cut you out and I could go direct to the product. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea if it's working well. Are you seeing any of that? What's the level of sophistication on the client side? And have you thought about the disclosure on it? Because you're obviously having more transparent conversations with clients in order to be able to be getting to those types of options.
Yeah, so I don't think we wouldn't kind of say we wouldn't use AI without kind of telling people that it was being used. I mean, kind of for document review, e-discovery, all of those kind of things, they're very open conversations that happen with clients. And on our, maybe our insurance side of the world, there are specific provisions built into client tenders that mean we have to go back to them every time we would want to use AI or deploy anything like that. So I think it's all part, isn't it, of that upfront conversation about here is a variety of different options. Here is what they cost. Here are the, associated risks or advantages to them, and letting clients understand that, maybe see them. Sometimes we offer to do like, small pilots so they can see that the tech is bringing back the outcomes that they're expecting before they have to kind of make that
try
decision.
before you buy.
Yeah,
I love that.
I don't think we would want to be in a position where it suddenly became apparent that we'd used a pile of AI and everybody was wondering how we'd charge them. I think that would be a pretty uncomfortable position as a lawyer with a practicing certificate to be in, to be
definitely would but you'd be surprised. Catherine, I'd love to come to you, but just a thought on that. What I haven't seen yet, but I know there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the background, is pricing based on ability to use client data for training systems, and whether there is going to start to be a trade of the pricing. Well, we'll give you a different price if we can use your data to train our systems, which would then be used across our client base. I haven't seen that happening yet, but I know there's a whole bunch of training that is happening without necessarily that being fully understood by clients. Catherine, what's your perspective on this pricing point?
I haven't seen that either. That's a really interesting concept, actually. So we have I have had discussions with law firms who are wanting to make sure they are more AFA ready. That have, we're talking large global law firms that have lots of tech, lots of people working in variety of roles. But I think then this isn't at all just about AI. This is about all types of technology and legal tech. And the firms that have been doing this and working hard for kind of 10, 15 years. Everyone feels a little bit like they've reached a bit of a plateau. And it was interesting that you mentioned earlier, Kat, about kind of pilot fatigue. And there's definitely some of the lawyers are like, oh, what's next? This is, we've been hearing this, we've been to these talks, so automation
all
again, this kind of thing. And it's good that Gen AI has brought a new interest in technology, and people are, turning up to talks that they never used to turn up to, and putting their hand up to volunteer for things. But yeah, the law firms, I don't know, there's a feeling that it's got to a point with existing tools, a bit of a plateau where the product owners, the legal engineers are kind of going, they have the tech and they're kind of tech led, going out to the business trying to find what's going. And I think we've lost 5, 6 years ago, we were all talking about process mapping and lean methodologies and Six Sigma, and we've forgotten that a bit, and we don't have those experts so much anymore in law firms. And I think people are thinking we need to go back to this, you know, we need to understand exactly, and it's not about just doing it the old way, but you need to map the as is process before you can then look at, you know, okay, where do we then already have tech in our stack? There's, you know, yeah, I think firms are on the pricing point, realizing that they would need to go back to that kind of thinking before they would be ready. And I know we've got better data now, so we can start to analyze, well, what have we charged in the past? What was involved in that? What made that one so much longer than that one, and why? But there's still those hard yards of the actual mapping to do in the
And
future.
where did we suffer by, you know, getting it wrong in our estimates and things like that? That's so interesting happening. So for 2025, then you're already expecting to see people going back to that process stuff, going back to the basics in order to build back up
Whether
again.
they do or not, it's another thing.
But they're talking about it.
'cause
They're
it's,
talking about
yeah,
wanting to do it.
definitely people are talking about being more AFA ready. And I think to be honest, you know, we've got to remember as well that AFAs is not just, and in a lot of law firms, especially in Europe, it's already fixed price, you know, or a client comes to you and goes,
True.
we're going to do this M&A deal. What will you charge us? You get a price at the beginning. So it's how you give that price at the beginning, or if you say, you know, we will do all of your leases across your entire portfolio for this year, and every lease will be X price. So there's already a lot of fixed price doing. So it's a lot more, you know, people are starting to think more about outcomes-based pricing. And that's where the speed and the quality of outcome will speed things up. But the saving of hours on the clock, you know, traditionally that's just been about reducing write-off of WIP, in Europe and the UK at least.
Yes, and financial modeling feels like there's a lot more that could be done on that, and having conversations with clients about what is this worth to you, that there's still not enough conversations, I don't think, happening at that level, at the very beginning level. So this piece of work, how is it, what level of strategic impact will it have in your business? What sort of budget do you have? What sort of level of quality do you need? You know, all of those types of very just human, normal chats. And then the financial modeling, the point you made about we'll take all your leases, that's also a committed revenue stream for a period of time that has a near-term financial benefit for the firm. So you can, you know, you could maybe do a better deal when you know that you've got that work coming in. Carl, anything to add on this? I also want to move on to resourcing, which has been picked up.
No, I think that I mean, obviously there's other aspects of this. I think that the most interesting will be direct monetization of these tools, right? So where people where firms are actually building new tools and new ways of delivering legal services that they're able to monetize directly, like charging for access to platforms like that. I think that's going to be the most exciting, but obviously that's kind of the furthest out.
Yes, that's true. And are we seeing any of that? Is anybody seeing, Carl, are you seeing that happening already? People starting to get new revenue streams? I mean, I know of at least 3 that are already building revenue from having built a product, and they're selling that product as a sort of separate service line to clients.
Yeah, we've seen a few. There are just a few that we've seen doing that right now, but others are working with to build that. Yeah, early days.
Yep. So we've talked a little bit about, and Kat, you mentioned it, around the shifts in how you need to resource, and I am expecting to see this next year as well. People are realizing maybe this last year and 2 of the gaps that they have in their skill sets and capabilities in their teams, and they're wanting to increase their ability to understand data, to build products themselves, and then looking at their resourcing model, that how their team is structured. Kat, what insights have you got on how you're looking at this, and what are you thinking is going to be needed for others in 2025?
Yeah, so we have over the summer, I suppose, doubled the size of the department. We've recruited another 15 people new into the firm in a variety of roles, so kind of the traditional legal engineer roles at a variety of different levels of experience, but also kind of more product owners and dedicated sales roles, so people who have, outside of the world of law, actually sold stuff. It's amazing, isn't it? It happens outside of law.
Shock, horror.
It is brilliant. because I suppose to kind of some earlier points, we've started in this last 18 months selling software to clients, which obviously brings a whole new kettle of fish to manage and navigate through a law firm, and I suppose a deeper sense of respect for people who've ever tried to sell stuff for me, because it's a hard slog. But again, you need a different skill set for that as well, that traditionally doesn't sit within a law firm. So I suppose there's that kind of new into product and innovation department roles. And there's also the kind of broader skill set of a firm. So we've all got, haven't we, hundreds of people in companies and firms that we have to keep upskilling on all of this, in the same way that we chuck, legal CPD at people. We can't expect this to happen to them in a kind of a tech product and innovation sense, as if by magic. So it's a bit like painting the fourth road bridge, isn't it? It is a job that is never done. You do one road show, one sense of training, and you go again. And we tried different things over the years to try and kind of encourage different groups. So we built our own kind of academy for our kind of more junior cohort to try and encourage these kind of more O-shaped lawyer skills, and to show them, I suppose, that their leadership careers as they progress through a law firm will probably look very different to ours. There will be a variety of different roles, and doing a good job for a client won't necessarily just be about giving them the right legal answer. So that kind of real multidisciplinary teams, but not just a room full of different lawyers. It's that kind of skill set that we're looking to do. But that kind of how do we deal with new entrants coming in? A lot of apprentices, trainees now are digitally native, aren't they? They can do everything, have done it at school. Ironically, not very good at working laptops, because they tend to have been tablet led. So the number we've had to show, like how to get a laptop on, certainly how to hook it up to screens, and that you have to hang up on Zoom as well. That's kind of eye-opening to them. So tech savvy, but in an interesting
the things
way.
You didn't realise,
exactly.
Didn't know. Yeah.
And
actually, there's a question coming here, and I don't know, Catherine, maybe you have something to add as well to Dr. Cat. But what if employees don't want to upskill, or they're reluctant to work with AI for whatever reason, and especially for more senior members of teams? Is the question from the floor. Thoughts on this? All three of you.
I think with lots of technology over my kind of like 20, 25 years career so far, has been, there's always people that are more excited and further ahead, and there's always ones that are resistant. And it's just, that's part of change management, is how you bring those people on with you. Understanding that it's normal to be nervous and apprehensive, especially if you're extremely senior, and you've done, and by senior I mean the partner of the law firm, nothing about age, but just in terms of you are expected to know everything and be right about everything and inspire the others and everything. So suddenly, if you're feeling a little bit of discomfort because you're not, I think one of my favorite examples was we were rolling out, it's about 10 years ago, and we were rolling out document automation and telling the partners all about it at a law firm. And one of the most resistant, and he was known to be one of the most resistant, I can't use tech, this technology stuff I can never do. We actually got up on stage, and while one person was speaking for 10 minutes, we gave him some heads of terms and asked him to draft, it was a lease and a license and a rent deposit deed or something. And he finished well within the time and had a perfectly drafted lease. So it was kind of like, if he can do it, anyone can do it. So it's sort of just, I think it's just empathy and change management and understanding and bringing people on the journey with you. And often just terminology. If something is your day job, when we talk about data, a lot of people don't know, because they don't need to, because it's not in their job, what data is, so just think about using the word information or prompt engineering makes it sound really, 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 really complicated.
Yes.
But there's ways
Asking
that you can break it down.
questions.
So I think a lot of education at the moment to make people feel comfortable and go, oh, okay, no, I can get the point of that, and just that empathy side as well.
Yeah, and I'd say the other part is understanding why. Like, why would you bother? Because it's useful. If it's not useful, then you wouldn't bother, would you? So there's a piece there. around that. The other thing I've noticed, and a few GCs actually told me this at the IBA conference this year, that they had let juniors go because they had automated, self-served, etc., and then they'd used that resource to hire into the legal ops team. So there's obviously a lot of shift happening, and that made me think at the time, oh well, what type of skill sets are there, and can you actually transfer people between roles rather than offboarding some and bringing in others? And I don't know, Kat, is that something that you're looking at? You mentioned about upskilling. Are you also seeing that there is a need, because it feels to me there is, to just be thinking more strategically next year about what resources we do have, what we think we're going to need, and how we can move people between roles or upskill people, not just to a tech baseline, but actually moving them into different roles so that we're not ending up offboarding half the workforce?
Yeah, I think certainly, there's been a variety of new roles that we've put in place, a lot of them from the kind of almost legal side, or almost that translator piece. So we made kind of product and innovation partner roles. I was a lawyer, but I'm very, keen to say that I last picked up a file 10 years ago. So what I say happened in my day is now becoming increasingly irrelevant. And we don't want that with kind of the next cohort coming through. So we've made these very deliberately a split role where 60% of their time is product and innovation. So we're upskilling them. They're doing, all the Lean Six Sigma. We still do all that, Catherine. We're still hammering that drum and pushing everybody through. They'll have sales training, LinkedIn training, stakeholder management, change management training, and 60% of their time will be acting as that kind of facilitator and translator piece. So they're usually, senior partners within our organization who already work with clients or manage teams and understand those kind of drivers. But they're really good at joining up the dots and being able to translate that back into a business service function, so that everybody can understand each other and to kind of encourage people.
So again, making those people part of the change management journey, basically.
Yeah, but making it very conscious that isn't a full-time role. Because
yes, it's not off the side of someone's
current.
desk.
Yeah, we want them to keep current. We want them to still have those client roles, those ops roles, whatever it is that gives them their value that mine has, slowly decreased over these 10 years. We want them to maintain that link to practice.
That's really good as well, because I do also worry about there's statistics that demonstrate women often more than men take on roles outside of fee earning, this type of work or mentoring, etc. Not always the case, but a disproportionate amount. And if it's always off the side of desk and it's not acknowledged as being an actual job, then that has all sorts of unintended consequences. So I really like the way that you've structured that. And also, if people have questions they would like to ask live, now would be the next 15 minutes is now the time that if you want to put your hand up, we can open the mic and bring you one if you like. And of course, do ask questions in the chat. I do want to ask you, get the chance to ask you all, what are the priorities or exciting things that you're seeing in relation to actual functionality of technology? It might be AI, it might be other areas. What are the bits that you think, oh, that's going to be really, really bloody useful and I can't wait? So for example, for me, I'm excited about voice, because I just want to be able to talk to the air and not actually have to type. And I appreciate that might be a way off in law, but I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about lawyers across the board using data and data visualization more to support clients with decision making. So I think, this piece about multimodal and being able to turn information into pictures so that you can tell stories to support decision making. I think that's really interesting. But Catherine, can I start with you? Are there particular things you're like, oh, I can't wait for that to be used?
I'm I'm such a geek when it comes to legal documents. So mine, yours are like voice and visualization. Mine are so boring compared to those, but they excite me. So
really
maybe
useful,
there's one or two people in the audience that may be excited by it as well. I'm loving all the kind of examples I'm seeing at the moment and the thoughts around how do we get instructions in from clients and how do we automatically then produce a first draft without anyone having to complete a questionnaire? So how do we link generative AI and expert systems and logic-based systems and document automation systems to do that? I also like a lot more communication with all parties and the clients,
Yes,
in terms of,
open.
for example, rather than an email from one lawyer to another lawyer saying, can you please respond to these inquiries, and having like 15 inquiries, having those automatically, you can upload an email, upload a Word document, upload PDF, however it's come in, have those then automatically organized and laid out as these are the inquiries. And then someone goes, okay, well, here's an insurance policy that covers that. Here's something that covers that. And we start to then complete all of those. So the things that some people were building using tools like HiQ, like 5 years ago around due diligence, what we can now do quickly, on with new tools as well. I think that's exciting. So yeah, a bit more like kind of
I
nerdy,
love
like
that though,
responding
just
to
like
inquiries and drafting documents,
stripping
but
out friction.
yes, exactly.
Amazing. Carl, what's on your excited for 2025 list?
Yeah, so the thing that I think our customers are the most excited about is coming in 2025 is we're going to be offering semantic search, right? So this is the holy grail of knowledge management. This is a semantic indexing of your entire document management system. I like to say that law firms have kind of the two most valuable assets that law firms have are their people and their work product. And really that's the knowledge and experience of the firms, right? Lawyers traditionally charge for two things, experience and time. And the experience is either embedded in people's minds or it's embedded in their work product, which is, of course, stored in their document management system. The way to traditionally unlock the knowledge that's stored in people's minds is through traditional knowledge management. And really, the way to unlock the value that's in the work product is going to be through semantic search. And this has been something that people have talked about for years. There have been various attempts to do it, but so far, no one's been able to crack this nut. And it's because really the underlying technologies to do this effectively and efficiently, at a commercially reasonable way, have not existed. So we've been working on it for a number of years now, but really the technologies that are out now that have come out really within the last year, that's what's finally enabled us to do that. We're working with both Elastic and AWS to implement this. We've got it working in kind of in our beta environments, but hopefully by the middle of next year, we'll be launching semantic search for the entire DMS. And that's going to really allow you to, it's going to augment lexical search, right? So lexical search, you search for, a specific term. So for example, if you want to search for, to give it a kind of a colloquial example, you type Spider-Man or Iron Man or Superman.
All my favorite characters.
Yeah, all your favorite characters. But let's say you wanted to search for superheroes, right? And now with semantic search, you can search for superheroes and it will understand that that is a category that encompasses those different things. So Spider-Man will show up. Or, a legal example would be if you're looking for an indemnification provision, a lexical search will just find that particular phrase. But it might be described in other ways, like compensation for loss.
Yep.
And so semantic search is going to allow really complex natural language searches. So you'll be able to say, like, find me, all indemnification provisions in lease agreements or all severability provisions in LLC agreements, and bring that back. And be able to, really leverage the power of your entire DMS. And then this is going to connect in with all of our other AI legal offerings, including our AI legal assistant, as well as custom applications that people can build through our low-code, no-code environment. So it's really going to supercharge knowledge management, as well as really unlock the potential that people have in their DMSs that currently it's untapped.
Very cool. And also, to a degree, go back to like what is in the DMS and which bit of it do firms own and which bit of it is actually owned by the clients, and do the clients realize? And that I think there's a whole piece of work that would be useful to do on that. Dr. Kat, what's your excited for 25 list?
I suppose sentiment analysis and what that could do to being able to almost, it's the holy grail, isn't it? Crystal ball, kind of gazing for clients as to what the next issue coming for them. So I think we've always been quite interested in whether you can almost sense check societal mood towards particular types of behavior. If you think of some of the things over recent years, the use of NDAs, the use of selling your house and then renting you the land underneath, things that were perfectly legally acceptable at a time, but obviously societal attitudes to those things changes. Is there that? Can you see from all the information that we have available to you, can you pinpoint kind of moments in time where that attitude changes? Can you imagine if you could deliver that back to a client as a kind of a proactive insight as to how they might wish to amend their business or behavior? I think that would be, I think that kind of technology and being able to join everything together is coming.
Very interesting. I mean, there obviously is Talkwalker and other sentiment analysis in the brand context, but in law, that's really interesting. And that obviously backs into, would you say that the ESG agenda, although that phrasing is moving out of popularity, but the ESG agenda, the need to be making decisions with integrity, ethics in business decision making, would you say that's playing into, or that will play into the deployment of that? Or is it more just commercial? I want to know if I'll be able to make money from this initiative.
No, I think it's the doing the right thing, isn't it? It's, you know, it's brand reputation as much as anything else. You know, most organizations want to do the right thing because it is the right, thing to do. So being able to have that kind of almost spider sense of actually there's a shift in what has become acceptable without having to speak to a pile of clients or users or undertake market research, I think would be a really, really powerful tool.
I love that. We heard it here first, everyone. We have a question here from the floor. How is the EU AI Act impacting first mover clients who've been developing or using AI? Great question. Have you seen any attempts to reconcile to meet the transition period for compliance? But that is really interesting, isn't it? Because you go fast, you adopt, you test, you go for it, and then you're like, how are we going to land on the regulation? I mean, from a strategic point of view, you have to make a decision on that up front. But what are people's thoughts? Who wants to jump in on that? You're like, I don't know. Kyle, anything from you on this? Have you thought about, I suppose your remit is more US side.
Yeah, we do business obviously with both all over the world. We have customers all over the world, including the UK and throughout the EU. Obviously they're going to have to evaluate there's various transition periods that have been stipulated in the Act, and you're going to have the client that have developed AI solutions will obviously have to go through and evaluate it for the various risks that are outlined in that Act. I think that's just, it's an evolving landscape. So I think people are going to have to be nimble in terms of evaluating their solutions. It's going to be kind of an ongoing issue as new laws are promulgated in different jurisdictions.
And I would add two things. One is that transparency in the way that Dr. Kat was talking about with clients. So obviously you need to get your compliance sorted in the background, but just making sure that there is a clarity of understanding about what's deployed, how it's deployed, what the ethical framework and governance framework is. And then the second thing, so that you're making sure you're on an even keel from a trust perspective, regardless of what regulation might be.
Yeah.
And then the second thing would be the use of technology for governance, I think is really, really interesting. So there's some cool tools out there now that are developing to do AI govern, to automate AI governance, and you can follow different frameworks and bake those into processes by deploying. So it's AI to govern AI. I think those types of things will be increasingly important, particularly when you've got different frameworks, because it won't just be the EU. It's obviously Australia doing a bunch of stuff. We're going to see what Trump's going to do in the US. But starting with just a baseline of responsibility and ethics. Another question, what are the key legal technology trends that will shape the industry in the next 5 years? Does anyone want to have a go at that? We've got 7 minutes, so you've got plenty of time. Kat, what are your thoughts on this one? What are the things that you're watching in particular beyond what you said?
I think there will probably be a move back to boring stuff. So, going away from all the wizzy technology and probably more thought around just because we can do something, should we be doing it?
Yep.
So you think this with Gen AI, don't you? Because we can, with RAG and all of the techniques, be able to get a provision to be X amount accurate. That's really great in an experimental context, but how do you scale that through an organization?
Yes.
So the fact that you can do things should probably be different from the should we be doing things? Is this a useful way of solving problems? So yeah, I think a bit more back to basics, all that fun process mapping, all of that stuff. Not necessarily a focus on tech. not to focus on tech at the kind of the be all and end all.
Yeah, like what are we trying to do? And I think it's certainly in law, and maybe this is just projection, but what we're seeing, so if we took fintech as a wave and now law tech as a wave, what fintech did was obsess about client outcomes and needs. So for law tech to follow that, it would be about obsessing about what clients actually want, or customers if it's the mass market. And we'll see some of the things that they want and need are very, very practical, very, very basic. It's not all bells and whistles. Two other things to add is I think the agentic side of AI will be really interesting. So moving from having a tool alongside you, helping you do something, to being able to sort of outsource to a tool that will start to anticipate your needs more. So I think agents, we've seen a lot of that in the second half of this year. I do think we'll see that coming through. And also there's
sorry
yes,
to
go for
interrupt,
it.
but with agents, though, that like that's the knowledge of the process
Correct.
is what, you know, is needed there to go back to that. So and yeah,
Agree. Yes, 100% agree. You can't do that without the first phase. Agree. And the other thing is there's lots of money going into other types of technology. As we saw this massive wow moment with OpenAI, there's all sorts of money going into quantum. Like there's a lot of don't know that I think people should say in the answering that question. Now we've got two more. So we've got Jonathan Bywater. What's your process for triaging and prioritizing use cases of AI? What are your favorite metrics to refer to? Catherine, what do you think? Do you want to jump into that one?
I was actually thinking I was going to be fascinated by what Dr. Cat did on that one, as in when you come up with the use cases. I think for us it would be doing things like so if you have lawyers from lots of different departments and they will come up with use cases, it's then kind of putting those into categories. So is that drafting? Is that reviewing? Is that execution? Is it retrieval of documents? You know, all the different kind of, to go use the word again, tasks go there, and then it's where the most departments, the most lawyers are saying, we really hate the way currently we have to do this and we'd like to improve that. So it doesn't have to be like specifically to one department.
How many people can we help? Can we help the most people? And which would be the thing that would help the most people? Dr. Cat, what about you?
Yeah, so
I mean, you've built some crazy products on this stuff as well.
We have done. It's a juggle, isn't it, as to what there is capacity to do within a team. Is it something that's going to knock resource out from absolutely everything else? You know, we've got various scoring metrics, anything that impacts a client obviously almost gets the kind of add 5 and pass go kind of points added to it. But again, trying to make sure, I suppose, from a strategic point of view, that we've got enough of a mix of types of use case and priorities as well. So some of those, smaller incremental change type pieces that we can bash in and out in a couple of weeks, couple of months, but also those almost cannibalistic, future looking, change the business of law type projects, which are obviously a slower burn, but you want to have that kind of balanced portfolio. We spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the various segments and areas of our business have things that are most relevant to them. And again, that kind of product and innovation partner role is there to join up silos. So again, like Catherine said, you quite often will speak to one lawyer who thinks their problem is really unique, and the lawyer 2 banks away in a different area will have the same problem and also think it's equally unique. So trying to almost crowdsource and sense check back, within an organization, so you can get your biggest bang for your buck.
Brilliant. Thank you. And we're coming up to the hour. So I just wanted to turn to you each, and I'm so sorry we can't get to all the questions, but wanted to turn to you each on takeaways. So 2024, we know where we are. We've got some really interesting thematics around strategy, around money, around the exciting areas, around the impact on resourcing, ROI, pricing, alternative fee arrangements, etc. When you look forward for 2025, what would be a key takeaway or tip or piece of advice that you would leave people with? Carl, can I come to you first?
Yeah, I think that, like I said kind of at the beginning, I think that for firms that have not gotten started, like now is certainly the time to start. You start with the planning and start with the experimenting and the POCs. For the other firms, I think it's time to get busy. I think it's the time to really start executing, focusing on those use cases. And in terms of prioritization, I think, I would say the most important thing is willing constituencies, right? So finding the group of people who are actually willing to give their time to help develop the use case, because that is the number one bottleneck to adopting solutions, is the time of the subject matter experts. I think that's sort of the most important thing, to find those willing constituencies and then empower them.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Catherine?
Process and people before tech.
Beautiful. Dr. Cat?
yeah, I suppose the people side, but not forgetting that even if you work in a change role doesn't necessarily mean you like change done to you. So as you're kind of trying to roll out new technologies, new ways of working, to kind of make sure that that is reinforced back within a team as well.
Yeah, so really that nothing happens unless the people are with you. So be with the people.
Definitely.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, dear panel members. That was super interesting. We could have gone for another hour at least. So thank you to you all for joining this session with Global Legal Tech Talks, which is produced by NetLaw Media with NetDocuments, and an absolute pleasure to chair. And for all of you for contributing. And again, I'm so sorry we couldn't get to all your questions. And know that you can subscribe today for future discussions, because there's going to be a program of work. Have an amazing 2025 when we all get there.